All right. So one of the things that I said in the video was that the symbol is important because it tells you if you get to keep your x-intercept or not. So if the inequality says equal to 0, then you get to keep your x-intercept. If the inequality does not equal 0, then you cannot keep your x-intercept. So for number 4, do you get to keep your x-intercept? No. So this symbol right here tells us to exclude the x-intercept because x-intercepts make the function equal 0, and we don't get to do that this time. So the x-intercept would be at -8. We do not get to keep -8 this time. All right, what would the factors on the bottom be?
-4 and 5.
-4 and 5, and what would they show up if we graphed them? What would those be if we graphed them? They'd be vertical asymptotes, okay? So vertical asymptotes, we never get to have those x values. Those are imaginary lines, right? They don't actually show up because you can't actually equal that number. So we cannot equal -4, we cannot equal 5. The symbol doesn't matter, we never get to have those numbers, okay? All right, so now I'm gonna go ahead and draw my sign chart. So I have a -8 that I don't get to have, a -4 that I can't have, and a +5 that I can't have. And what do I do now? Plug in some numbers. So what's a good number that is smaller than -8? -9? Okay, so if I look at the top, I have -9 plus 8. That's a negative. -9 plus 4 is a negative. -9 minus 5 is a negative. And so if I have negative divided by a negative times a negative, what do I get? So these two would cancel each other out, right? So I'd have negative divided by positive, which is negative. All right? What's a number that's between -8 and -4? -6, okay? -6 plus 8, positive, yep, +2. -6 plus 4, -6 minus 5. So what would this one be? Positive, okay? A number between -4 and 5? 4. So 4 plus 8. 4 plus 4. 4 minus 5. And so what's our result for that one? Negative. Okay? And then last, something bigger than 5 could be 6. 6 plus 8. 6 plus 4. And 6 minus 5. All right, so that's a positive. Now, what you will notice is that when you do your sign charts, it is very common for the signs to alternate. It does not happen 100% of the time, but it's common. That means we never get to shorthand this. We never get to say, oh, it starts with a negative, so I'll alternate after that. We don't get to do that because sometimes it does not alternate. Sometimes you have 2 pluses in a row, okay? That said, if all of them alternate today, don't be surprised because that's common, okay? All right, so now we look and we say we want to have the numbers that are greater than 0.
Between -8 and -4.
So we're going to look for the positives, right? That's what Nadia was doing, was looking at the positives. So anything greater than 0 is going to be our positives. So that's part of my answer. And then this over here is part of my answer. And this is still me showing my work. I haven't written my final answer yet. I have to write my final answer either in interval notation or with inequalities using x, but I have to write the actual answer because I'm not done. So how could I write this in interval notation? And what do I put around both of those? Parentheses, because I can't equal them. And then 5 to infinity. All right. When I plug in my numbers, I try to write them really small so that they don't confuse me later. So if you need to go back and like scribble them out before you write your final answer so that those numbers don't throw you off, that's not a bad idea. Okay? So this is how we would have finished this one. All right. So just looking at the front side of the worksheet, is there another problem you want me to do for the evens? I'll do one from the back, but I want to give you guys some time to practice the easier ones first, and then I'll help you with one of those. So is there another even problem we want to go over? 8? We can do 8. Let's do 10 because it involves more factoring, and it has a different symbol than the last one we did. Okay, so this one is still a nice problem because 0 is by itself already on one side, so that's good. So what do we have to do with the rest of it? Factor. So if I factor the top, Greg, what do I get?
You get x minus 8
Mm-hmm.
and x plus 8.
Mm-hmm. All right, and then what do we get on the bottom? 7 and 2. What about the 2? Negative. Okay. So based on the symbol, do we keep our x-intercepts or do we exclude them? We keep them. All right, so our x-intercepts would be what? Positive 8 and negative 8, okay? So we get to keep those. And then what else do we have? Negative 7 and 2. And what do we know about negative 7 and 2? We don't get to have them because they're vertical asymptotes. So we exclude them because they're vertical asymptotes. Okay, so on my sign chart, I have a negative 8 that I'm going to keep, a negative 7 that I don't get to keep, a positive 2 that I don't get to keep, and a positive 8 that I do get to keep. All right, lots of numbers this time. They're vertical asymptotes. You never get to keep them. Anything on the bottom you don't get to keep. All right, so what numbers do we want to plug in? Negative 9. So when I plug it in, I'm not going back to the original problem. I'm looking at the factored form because that's the easiest to plug into. So negative 9 minus 8 is a negative. Negative 9 plus 8 is a negative. Negative 9 plus 7 and negative 9 minus 2. So that's going to be positive, yep. All those negatives end up canceling each other out. What's a number between negative 8 and negative 7? Negative 7.5. Okay, so negative 7.5 minus 8 is a negative. Negative 7.5 plus 8. Negative 7.5 plus 7. And negative 7.5 minus 2. So that ends up being negative. They're probably going to alternate. They typically do. Between negative 7 and 2, what number can I plug in? 1. 1 minus 8. 1 plus 8. 1 plus 7. 1 minus 2.
I'm kidding. No, I'm not.
No, you're right. And so what's our result?
Positive.
Positive. Yeah. No, I was just waiting. I was waiting. You're good. All right. Between 2 and 8.
3.
3. So 3 minus 8.
Negative.
3 plus 8.
Positive.
3 plus 7.
Positive.
3 minus 2.
Positive.
Positive that time, yeah.
You're wrong.
All right, so these signs all do negative, okay? And then bigger than 8, 9. So 9 minus 8,
Positive, negative, positive, negative.
9 plus 8,
Positive. What'd you say?
9 plus 7, 9 minus 2.
Positive, positive.
All right, so which ones are we keeping this time, the pluses or the minuses?
The minuses.
The minuses, because we say less than 0. Because the sign tells us to use minuses.
Sign. So the answer is negative 8 to negative 7.
Mm-hmm.
And then 2 to 8.
Okay, so negative 8 to negative 7, what do we put around those?
You put a bracket. No, you put a bracket. Go, girl.
Perfect. And then what else do we have?
You want a cookie.
That'd be 2 to 8.
2 to 8.
And then we
What is
are
that bracket? 2.
bracket the 8, parentheses the 2.
Bracket the 8, parenthesis the 2.
Yep.
Whew.
Woo!
14. All right, so it doesn't equal 0 on one of the sides, so I need to do that. Typically, I just take this fraction and I move it over to the left side, and so that means I'm going to be adding 3 over x minus 3. And I personally don't like this first fraction because it has a minus in front of it. So I'm going to write it as this one minus that one just because I think that looks better. Not because you're not right if you don't, just because I think it looks funky otherwise. So I'm going to say 3 over x minus 3 minus 2 over x minus 4. Did anyone get lost when I did that? Yeah, I just moved it to the other side and I moved it to the front because that felt better to me to have this negative right in the middle. All right, so what do I need now? Common denominator. And so both of them are missing, like there's two completely different denominators there, right? X minus 3 and x minus 4. So this one's going to need the x minus 4. And then the other one's going to need the x minus 3. I don't know why I wrote so small. Let me zoom in. All right. So I have a fraction now. It has a common denominator with an x minus 3 and an x minus 4. And on the top, I have 3x minus 12. And it's a subtraction problem, so I'm going to minus off the rest. And to make sure that I minus it off correctly, I'm going to put parentheses so that I distribute that negative. And so the stuff that I'm minusing would be 2x minus 6. So now that I have it all set up, I can go ahead and distribute that negative. So I have 3x minus 12 minus 2x plus 6. Craig, you writing it down? Because you're following along, being a good student?
Yes, ma'am. Always.
Always. So, what do we have on the top? X minus 6, yep. And so if we look at this, based on the symbol, are we including the x-intercept or are we going to exclude it? Include. We're going to include. And what is the x-intercept? 6, okay. And then what are the vertical asymptotes? 3 and 4, and we will not include those because we never do. Okay, so on my sign chart, I have a 3, I have a 4, and I have a 6. So what could you plug in that's less than 3? 2. So 2 minus 6 is a negative. 2 minus 3 is a negative. 2 minus 4 is a negative. So the answer is a negative. What number is between 3 and 4? 3.5. So, yeah, you could do that if you want. Yeah. 3.5 minus 6 is a negative. 3.5 minus 3, positive. 3.5 minus 4 is a negative. So that's going to be a positive. What's between 4 and 6? 5. 5 minus 6 is negative. 5 minus 3. 5 minus 4. So that would be a negative. Okay. And then something bigger than 6. 7. So we have 7 minus 6. And 7 minus 3. And 7 minus 4. So they're all positive. Okay. And then based on the inequality symbol, are we keeping the negatives or keeping the positives? Keeping the negatives because we want to be less than 0. So keep the negatives and keep the negatives. And so what is our answer?
Negative infinity to 3. And then 4 to 6, right?
Perfect. All right, do we need to do another one? 12 or 16? Do we want to do one of those?
Yeah.
Which one?
Whatever you want.
We could do 12 because that looks a little different than the one we just did. Yeah, so this is a 2 over 1, but do we like the way it looks right now?
No.
No, so what should we do? Plus 2 over the other side. So I have 2x over x plus 8 plus 2 over 1 is less than 0. And so what do we need to do? Okay, so we need to get that common denominator. So we have a common denominator of x plus 8. The first fraction gives us a 2x. The second fraction gives us a 2x plus 16. Why did I not put that in parentheses this time? It's a plus problem, yeah, instead of a subtraction problem. All right, so if we combine like terms, what do we have?
4x plus 16 over x plus 8.
All right.
No, you trying to go too deep. It's too big.
It's not difference of squares, is what she meant to say.
Yeah.
All right, so now that we look at the problem, do we include the x-intercept or do we ignore the x-intercept? Well, not ignore, but exclude it. Yes. Okay. All right, so we are going to exclude the x-intercept. And what was the x-intercept? Negative 4. So x cannot equal negative 4. And what else?
Negative 8.
X cannot equal negative 8. Okay. And so on my sign chart, no negative 8, no negative 4. So what could we plug in that's smaller than negative 8? Negative 9. Negative 10 would work. So we have 4, which is just positive. negative 9 plus 4, and negative 9 plus 8. So we have a positive, negative, negative, which is positive. Between negative 8 and negative 4, negative 5, we have a positive, negative 5 plus 4, and negative 5 plus 8. So positive, negative, positive. That would be a negative. And then bigger than negative 4, 5. Sure. 5 plus 4, 5 plus 8. So we have a positive, positive, positive. All right. And we use the middle because, again, we have an inequality that says less than 0, which means we use the negative. Why are you guys packing up? It's almost like you don't want to be here anymore. All right. So negative 8 to negative 4. Ta-da.